by the Montana Television Network. The 10 o'clock news continues on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Thousands of Montana children are in a limbo. This limbo is called foster care. It's a system kids enter afraid and alone and often turn 18 without finding a permanent home. That heartbreaking reality is known as aging out. Today, 3,900 Montana kids are in foster care, with nearly 500 of them awaiting adoption. In this special report, MTN's Asia Gore takes us for a walk in their shoes to show us the challenges foster kids face now and later.
My life today is basically just taking care of that little one and raising him to have a good life that I never had.
Jasmine McCrae is a 21-year-old single mother. Her baby, King, is her pride and joy. Jasmine wants to be the mother she never had.
She had a terrible drinking issue and she just snapped one night and ended up cutting off all my hair with a butcher knife. My brother ran in the snow in just his pajamas to go get help. I do have a big scar on my head.
That was the breaking point, the moment Jasmine and her 8 siblings were removed. She was just 13. Jasmine entered Montana's foster care system and lived with 5 different families over the next 5 years.
I've been to Laurel, I've been to Senior, Skyview, and West.
Before she graduated from any of those schools, Jasmine emancipated herself and dropped out. Nearly 300 miles away in Glasgow, Jimmy Walker was removed from her home after Child Protective Services learned her mother was an alcoholic and her boyfriend a sex offender.
She would blame me for her financial problems because they took my part of the Social Security away.
Walker's father died when she was an infant, so she was placed with a foster family in Livingston, where she lived through 4 years of high school. Unlike Jasmine, Jimmy was not forced to move, but she too was never adopted. This year, as Jimmy weighed whether to go off to college or return to her mother, the decision was made for her.
Out of the blue, she just passes away, and I'm left alone up here with no one.
To cope, Jimmy is focusing on her classes at Montana State University in Bozeman, where she earned 2 scholarships.
I want to succeed, I want to do good, so my life doesn't suck anymore.
Jasmine and Jimmy entered the same system and left on 2 different paths. State data shows 65 Montana kids aged out just last year. Many are now in jail, on government assistance, even homeless. Suzanne Braun with Child and Family Services says a lack of foster parents and high caseloads for social workers keeps kids in limbo.
Best practice would be in the lower 20s. So our workers are carrying double that.
To help bridge the gap, programs like Chafee offer career guidance and life skills.
Early on, I really pushed education and learned really quickly that these kids don't grow up in homes where they're required to go to school, and that's not made important. I had to learn really early on that they didn't want to continue on in education, and that wasn't a failure, that there's lots of ways to be out in the world and be successful.
Chafee Director Stephanie Marquis says employment, housing, and parenting are all forms of success. She's mentored hundreds of kids in the Yellowstone County program. Only 2 graduated college.
Their mental health gets in the way of all of this. So they have a lot of grief and a lot of trauma that they face that normal kids just don't have to go through.
Tumbleweed crisis counselor Rebecca Perfett answers calls from teens in their darkest hour.
I've had numerous calls of just, is there a place that I can stay tonight? A lot of the homeless teens that are just needing a warm place to stay.
Perfett brings personal experience to the conversation. She was in foster care, shuffled through 5 different homes in just over a year.
It's just feeling alone and not belonging to any family. No one's going to understand you.
Perfett did not age out. She was returned to her mother. And Braun says that's the goal, reunification. But for many kids, home is too dangerous.
Entering the foster care system should be an experience for them that reaches out and embraces them and wraps around them to get them the services that they need. But it also can come with a different set of trauma for children as well.
As they navigate adulthood, it's not without the trauma they experienced as children. Jasmine and Jimmy tell me they want a system of care redesigned with kids in mind, one that offers options and gives foster kids a voice. In Billings, I'm Asia Gore, MTN News.
Neglect, abuse, and exposure to illegal drugs are the most common reasons children are placed in foster care here in Montana. And up next, some Montana families gather to cope with the loss of a loved one due to suicide. That story coming up, and AC/DC guitarist and co-founder Malcolm